Is this the day I'm gonna be cancelled? Fancy. Do you like my shirt?
Bella! Where the hell have you been, Loca?
It's awesome. Well, hello there, welcome back. Long time no see. I have a very simple explanation for why I disappeared for such a long time, and that explanation is I was not doing well.
I'm so sick of it.
Last semester was just kind of tough for me, you know, brain-wise. Long story short, I was finally diagnosed with ADHD and I recently started my treatment. Recently as in like 2 or 3 months ago. And I'm doing very well, actually. I still don't know just how consistent I'm gonna be able to be here, just because I'm now back at work and all that. But my brain's doing better, so chances are I'm gonna be here a little more than I was last year, hopefully. Piracy is here too. Anyway, you probably don't care about that. Today, I'm here to give you an introduction class on book Twitter drama. So welcome to Book Twitter Discourse 101 with Professor Bibella. That's me. I'm Bibella. For those of you unaware, book Twitter is known for recycling the same discourse over and over again. So we're always having the same discussions like every couple of months or so. Some of those discussions are very important, others are stupid, but even the important ones end up losing their meaning, so Jacob's face is not doing so well. The only warning I'm gonna give you before we start with the class is that I am, of course, gonna be very biased here, and proudly so. What can I say? I stand by my opinions, babe. Without further ado, this is Book Twitter Discourse 101. First discourse, people who have high Goodreads average ratings. First things first, you are entitled to not agreeing with someone's opinions or to not want to get recommendations from them. Let's say okay, completely fine. Nothing wrong with that, especially if you know for a fact that your tastes simply don't align with theirs. However, we are probably gonna get a lot of these in this video. However, thinking yourself superior for having what you consider to be an adequate average rating on Goodreads is fucking stupid. Also pretty shitty. The problem here isn't to not trust someone's recommendations, it's the people who think that those with high average ratings are somehow stupid or not critical readers. If you only do the former, no problem. If you do the latter though, maybe it's time to do some soul searching. There are plenty of reasons why someone might have a high average rating on Goodreads. Maybe they just know their taste very well. Maybe they simply don't pick up books they don't think they're gonna like. Maybe they DNF books as soon as they realize they're not enjoying them. Maybe they don't have enough time for reading and therefore curate a TBRs to the nth degree. Or maybe they just don't take reading that seriously and it's just a hobby for them. None of that makes someone somehow intellectually inferior or incapable of critical thought. But also, people with high average ratings don't need to take it so personally when someone says they won't take recommendations from them. That is their prerogative. That's a hard word. That's the right. No one is obligated to agree with your opinion. In the end, it doesn't even matter. It's just really not that deep. Next! Negative reviews. This one pops up every end of the year, and sometimes authors are the ones who initiate a conversation, which, yikes. We're gonna get into that later. The way this always starts is a person or multiple people saying, I don't know why you would leave a bad/negative review for a book. If you don't like it, just move on and say nothing. Huh? If you're gonna leave a negative review, at least give constructive criticisms. That is no reason to be mean. Huh? Authors are human beings too, you know. Huh? Are you okay? The first thing you gotta learn as an artist, and this is coming from an artist, by the way, is that not everyone is gonna like your work, and not everyone is gonna understand it the way you intended it to be understood. And that's okay. You are not entitled to anyone's love and devotion, and neither is your work. It doesn't matter how much work you put into it, how much of yourself you put into it, how cathartic it was for you to write it, or how it explores such heavy themes. As soon as your book gets published and it starts being sold, it is not only art or your personal exploration anymore, it is a product. A product, mind you, that people are going to pay for and invest their time in. I remember the first semester of film school, the first short films all of us had to make and then present to the class and to the professors and all that. Most people would step onto the stage and without prompting would just start word vomiting about all the issues they had while making the film, or all the little errors and problems that showed up in the final product. And the professors were very quick to cut the crap and just tell us, when someone is watching the movie you made, they don't know and they don't give a fuck and they don't have to give a fuck about all the troubles and tribulations that you had in production. That doesn't matter. What matters is the final product. So let it speak for itself. And they even told us, listen, you gotta toughen up, because in here we'll be respectful, we're gonna give you constructive criticism, and we're gonna try to help you improve on your problems. But out there, people have no such obligation, and you have to be ready to take that. But that's beside the point for this conversation. Also, most people wouldn't even realize most of the errors that you try to explain if you're running for you pointing them out first. Book reviews are for readers. They are not for authors. They're for people to read and decide whether or not they want to invest their time and their money into a book. Book reviewers and readers in general do not owe authors constructive criticism. That is the editor's job. Negative reviews are just as important as positive ones, and frankly, they don't even necessarily make you not want to pick up a book. Many times I've read negative reviews and I was like, oh, so this person doesn't like the book because of this and that reason, but I like those things, so I might like the book too. Negative reviews are valid, and they wouldn't even automatically deter someone from giving the book a try. Also, rent reviews are fucking fun, okay? They are some of my favorite videos to watch, and if you think that makes me a bad person, well, sucks to suck. All of that being said, don't tag authors in your negative review of the books. Don't email it to them, don't DM it to them, don't tag them, don't do it, okay? Doing that is very mean-spirited. What I said before counts for us too. Book reviews are for readers. They are not for authors. Okay? Next! Sex in YA. I find this to be a bit of a complex topic, and I don't know exactly where to stand on this. First of all, I'm not a professional and I don't have any credentials on anything regarding teenagers other than the fact that, I used to be one, which is not saying much. All of this to say, I don't know the impacts this might have on teenagers, whether it's positive or negative, or if it even has a direct impact or not. I would say though, I don't think there's anything wrong with YA books having sex scenes per se. It's when the scenes get explicit that things get a bit dicier. I am honestly not sure if it's appropriate to have explicit sex scenes in YA, and I definitely don't think it's fair for adult readers to demand YA to have explicit sex scenes when they can just read an adult book for that. I think adult readers of YA often forget that they are just guests in the genre. It's not written for us. It's not. So yeah, I'm not against characters in YA having sex. Lots of teenagers have sex. And I think it's important to normalize sexuality and to have a positive idea of it, to show that there's nothing wrong with it, there's nothing dirty with it. And it's important to have positive and healthy representations of that. Do I think every YA book needs to have sex? No, absolutely not. It's just as important to normalize that sex and relationships aren't everything in life, in my opinion. But there's nothing inherently wrong with it being a part of the story, is what I'm getting at. It's when it comes to the explicitness that I'm a bit more unsure, because again, I don't have any credentials here. Yeah, I read explicit stuff when I was a teenager and I turned out mostly fine. But that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. I'm just one in millions of people, and that evidence is entirely anecdotal. I guess as of right now, I'm tentatively standing in the camp of sex is okay, explicit sex? Let's maybe not go there. But I don't know. I would love to hear your opinions on this one specifically, especially if you are more well-informed than I am, because who knows? I might be 100% wrong with this one. Next! Fantasy is not real literature. Yes, it is. Romance is not real literature. Yes, it is. Audiobooks / picture books / graphic novels / comics aren't real reading / don't count as reading. Yes, they are. And yes, they do. Also, you're ableist. Consumerism. Oh god. Here we go. I'm gonna be 100% honest with y'all. I don't give a single flying fuck how you spend your money. I really don't care. Book hauls are not the type of content that I personally enjoy watching, but the fact that I don't watch them and the fact that I don't like watching them doesn't make them bad or inferior. However, like everything else in life, consumerism doesn't exist in a vacuum. It leaks into all the areas of life. Consumerism has been widely criticized by both individuals who choose other ways of participating in the economy, but also by experts evaluating the effects of modern capitalism on the world. Experts often highlight the connection of consumerism with issues like growth imperative and overconsumption, which have larger impacts on the environment, including direct effects like overexploitation of natural resources or large amounts of waste from disposable goods, and larger effects like climate change. Similarly, some research and criticism focuses on the sociological effects of consumerism, such as reinforcement of class barriers and creation of inequalities. Keep that one in mind. That's from Wikipedia, by the way. This is the 101 video and I'm not getting paid for it, so this is what we're getting for now. In the book community specifically leads to establishing a standard of content, a style of content that ends up excluding Global South readers and content creators severely. This community as of now works in a way that pressures all of us to stay up to date with all the new releases and the hype books, and to always buy more books, and to have the prettiest editions, and to have the most gorgeous library setups, etc. Obviously not everyone caves under that pressure, but that doesn't change the fact that it exists and that it sucks. It also sucks that if you don't participate in that, it's likely that your content is not gonna get noticed and viewed and interacted with. And everyone who creates content wants their content to reach people and for people to engage with it. And if they say they don't, they are lying, okay? Because why else would they put it out there? That's quite an unhealthy and unrealistic and hard standard to everyone, but especially to poor and underprivileged people, and even more so to people in the Global South. An example, it's not a secret that book hauls are one of the most popular types of videos on BookTube in terms of views. They're also notoriously very hard for us down here to make because books are fucking expensive here.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck?
Exchange rates, devalued currencies, and overtaxation, make sure of that. If you think $30 or whatever Global North currency you use for a hardback is expensive, then oh boy, do I have a sad story for you. Before I tell you that story though, keep in mind that we are paid in our own currencies, not in yours. Here in Brazil, that's Brazilian reais, and our current minimum wage is 1,212 reais a month. On the day I'm filming this, $1 is equivalent to 5 reais and 25 cents, €1 is 5 reais and 96 cents, and £1 British pound is 7 reais and 13 cents. And that is far from the best exchange rate, honey. And then you add taxes and shipping on top of that, and it's a nightmare, baby. And even though the Brazilian exchange rate is far from the best, this is still the type of scenario we are dealing with.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
And the more niche and diverse a book is, the more expensive it gets. Now, some books get translated, usually the most popular in terms of money, of course. And those translated editions are cheaper, but the quality of them varies greatly depending on which country you're from and which publisher specifically is making them. And obviously, most books are not gonna get translated. Now, could you imagine spending over $100 on every single hardback or over $60 on every single paperback you own? Would your personal physical library be as big and beautiful as it is with those prices, or even worse ones for that matter? I don't think so. Don't get me wrong, this is obviously not something you can solve on an individual level. And it's not your fault that you're privileged, and it's not a crime for you to get yourself nice things and to spend your money however you want. But there are things people in the Global North can do to help all of us out, and things we as a community can do to make it a healthier space for everyone. My friend Lo has a great video on this with some course to action, I guess I could say, at the end of it, and also a Twitter thread that goes over some too. I'll have them linked down below and I highly recommend to have a look at them. You can also make an effort to engage with the content that people in the Global South make and that poor and underprivileged people make, and just content from people who are different than you. Seek different perspectives, different formats, different ideas, different types and styles of content. Just broaden your horizons, my dear student. I'm not exempt from consumerism. None of us are. I like pretty things too. I like having nice things too. I like having options. And nowadays I'm thankfully in a very privileged position where I can afford to give myself nice things every now and then. And my ADHD plus the trauma of growing up will sometimes make me impulsively buy more than I should, if I'm being honest. But that's besides the point. All of that being said, for goodness sake, you just saw how much our global north money is worth over here. There are countries in the global south where a single US dollar can feed a family for a day. So if you have money to spare to the point where you buy $90 by $10-ish each per month, then surely you can afford a donation to a charity or a cause in the global south every now and then, right? Like, come on. EPUBs and book piracy. Why do y'all hate poor people so much? Honest question. I don't know how to explain to y'all that poor people deserve things too. But let's go in parts. One comment that often, if not always, comes up when we're having this discussion is one that frankly disgusts me, and it is: well, books are not a necessity. Reading/books are a luxury. If you can't afford them, then don't read them. That's such individualistic capitalist bullshit. Wow, okay. First of all, what you need to live is not only the things that you need to survive. Living and surviving are two different things. The things that you need to survive are things like food, water, sleep, etc. In order to live, you need a whole lot more than that. And I'm of the radical opinion that people deserve and have the right to actually live. Fun, escapism, hobbies, hope, love, all of that matters, and even more so when you have very little else. It saves lives, it inspires people, it keeps them going. Everyone needs and deserves education, culture, and things that make them happy. Not to mention, think of all the less privileged people who could grow up to be fantastic writers and artists. What happens if they don't have anything to help them hone those abilities and cultivate and get better, improve on those abilities? Think of all the voices we could be losing because of that. Yes, books are a luxury in the sense that they are way too expensive, not easily accessible and not readily available to most people. No, books are not a luxury in the sense that if you're poor and can't afford them, then you don't deserve access to them. But Bella, what about libraries? Poor people can just go to the library. Maybe you have the best intentions with this suggestion, or maybe you're just being a condescending, classist and elitist asshole. Different people fall on different sides here. But regardless of that, that is a very privileged and ethnocentric take to have. The rest of the world does not work the same as the US or the UK or Canada or whatever other country has amazing libraries. Some of us have shitty libraries or fewer libraries or even no libraries at all. I know, shocking. Libraries where I live, for example, work mostly for research or studying purposes. So lots of non-fiction and classics and books from our own countries. And even then, libraries are not available everywhere here. Bloody hell, not even in the US are all libraries created the same. They have very different budgets depending on where they're located, and they have their own set of problems. So the fact that your library is fantastic doesn't mean that the one in the next country over, in that same country, works as smoothly, let alone the rest of the world. And before you suggest subscription services like Audible or Scribd, let me just remind you that those prices are far from affordable when you have to go through exchange rates and have a devalued currency. Sure, $15 isn't that much. 95 Brazilian reais, on the other hand, is. Do you think paying almost $100 a month for one audiobook is affordable in any way? Get the fuck out of here. Ebooks? You rarely find any for less than 30 reais. It's not impossible, but it's not common either. And that's for indies. For more famous or traditionally published titles, chances are you won't find many for less than 50 reais. Would you pay $30 for an ebook? Didn't think so. Ooh, it started raining right on cue. I guess heaven is crying at those prices too. Wait, did that rhyme? Well, that was completely accidental. Anyway, back on topic. Getting arcs through NetGalley would be great if they gave us any, but they don't. And not only that, often the arcs aren't even available for request for bookish content creators and readers in the global south, even when they're about our own cultures, our own countries and people. Isn't that fun? But Bella, what about authors? They deserve to be paid for their work. Absolutely, you and I agree 100% on that one. Which is why I believe publishers should pay authors fairly for their work. Which they don't. Publishing is a multi-million-dollar business, y'all. They can afford to compensate their authors fairly. For sure. Pirating is not the reason authors struggle. Predatory, exploitative, uber-capitalist publishing practices are. I think it was Martinez said on Twitter that people campaigning against piracy for that reason have the same energy as people who shame others for using plastic straws. And he was so right for that. Individuals alone are not responsible for and cannot solve a systemic problem, especially if they are from the more vulnerable populations. So how about, instead of blaming people who download EPUBs, you blame the industry that makes millions, all the while paying the authors pennies? You know, the authors, the actual talent behind the work. Also, I'm sorry to be the one to break the news to you, but people who don't have money wouldn't buy the goddamn book anyway. You are not losing a sale and they are not stealing a sale. That would not have happened in the first place. And before you mention that survey that proves that people who pirate can afford books actually, spare me. That survey was conducted on less than 600 people, which is a laughable and preposterous sample number. That's a small sample for one city, let alone for the entire world. Also, it was commissioned by a company that offers a digital pirating solution and who very much is interested in selling that to publishers, so do with that information what you will. Again, videos, blog posts and threads that go a bit more in depth into specific parts of this conversation will be linked down below. Now, of course, if you have the disposable income, if you actually have the means to buy books and support them financially the way I thankfully do nowadays, please do it. And you know, maybe put your money where your mouth is. Since you're so concerned about global south people and poor people downloading EPUBs, maybe buy them some books and they won't have to do it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Next! Romance doesn't need a happily ever after or a... Yes, it does. Next, no, I'm just joking. Genre conventions and genre requirements are two different things. Now, romance as a genre has many conventions, but only two requirements, and those are that romance is central to the story and to have a happily ever after or a happy for now ending. That's it. You can definitely challenge conventions, but if you don't fulfill the requirements, then your book is no longer a romance. And that's down there. Next. Illustrator romance covers. I hesitate to call this Discourse, but it does pop up on book Twitter like every other week, and book Twitter has the ability to turn even the most minute things into discourse, so this is mostly a matter of personal taste in my opinion. Like, I like illustrated covers just fine, but if you don't, that's okay. I honestly don't care. There is some genuine and valid criticism in the sense that those covers may make it seem like the book is going to be very light and fluffy or have a rom-com-esque feel, which is not always the case. I don't tend to assume a book's done by the cover, maybe precisely because I'm used to the two of them not necessarily matching. I usually tend to assume the book's done from like the synopsis or things like that, but it's definitely an understandable and valid criticism. Like, just because I don't do it doesn't mean that nobody else does. I don't know. So my take on that is, I personally like illustrated covers and they don't bother me, but I definitely understand where people were coming from with this one. Next! Growing out of YA. Most of the time, I honestly don't understand why people on either side of this argument get mad at each other. I don't think there's anything wrong with growing out of a genre, and yes, I know YA isn't really a genre. It's more of a target demographic. But you get what I'm saying. People change, and so do their reading tastes, and sometimes that change is cyclical, so you might just be tired of a genre or a type of book right now, and then you take a break from it and go back to it when you're less saturated, and you're back to liking it again. It's fine. It's only when people imply that YA is somehow inferior that I have a problem. I feel like way too many adults forget that YA isn't really written for us. It's written for teens. There is nothing wrong with us reading and liking YA, but we need to remember that we are guests here, babes. YA isn't inferior or dumber just because it isn't written for you and your adult brain. Get over it. To sum it up, there's nothing wrong with you not reading or liking YA anymore, as long as you don't dismiss it just because it doesn't tickle your fancy now. I hate the way that sounds. Who created the expression tickles my fancy? I just want to have a word. This was a lot, wasn't it? I didn't think this video was gonna be that long or take me that long to film, but oh well. And I definitely came off a lot saltier than I intended. Sorry, I guess. Okay, now I want to know what are your opinions on all of these discussions and discourses or whatever, and what are the book Twitter discourses that I missed? Because there's bound to be plenty. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment and subscribe if you feel like it. And as always, I'll see you around.